All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster at Foster Web Marketing on January, what is today? Good Lord. What is today? The 19th, January 19th, 2016, here for our first webinar of the year. And I am super excited about this webinar because we get to talk about something else that's not website related, although it kind of is. And I'm going to talk about why it kind of is. But this webinar is with one of my very dear friends, Jay Henderson, of Real Talent Hiring, and I'm going to tell you why this guy's so important and why you want to listen to this webinar. I don't hire anybody without talking to Jay. Nobody. After hiring the wrong people, somebody told me, and I think it was probably Ben, or I can't remember, Jay. It was Ben Glass and Brem Jackson, and I think you started coming doing great legal marketing, and I started listening to you speak, and I was like, oh, what is this voodoo this guy's selling? And right, and whatever, this smooth talker, and
Well,
then
thank
I
you.
just, well, it's true, true, you know, but this stuff works, and we call it the J test, and nobody comes to work here at Foster Marketing without going through the J test. And there's various tests and whatnot, but we just call it all the J test. I have a hard time remembering even the name of your company often because we just call it the J test. And every time I don't listen, I regret it. And every time that the test is so accurate, it's so pinpoint accurate on how people work and how people think and how people communicate that it helps us make sure that we get the right people, and then after we get the right people, it helps us communicate with them. And we quite often refer back to the J test, and Buster and I will do this. Well, the J test says this about even Molly here. The J test says this about Molly. So this is what we better do or not do when we communicate. So Jay, thank you so much for joining us. The reason why I wanted to start off our year with talking to you is because, as everyone knows, we cater and do a lot of service work and help lawyers and doctors and other businesses become successful. And yes, we're a web marketing company. We are a marketing company, and our responsibility to our clients is to produce traffic that produces leads that ultimately produces business, whether that's cases or clients or patients or whatever. Ultimately, that's producing that business. And it's not enough just to rank number one. It's not enough to get those leads in. It's how you close them. And you have to have the right people in order to close them. And so often, it's happened in all my years of doing marketing that I see that all the marketing's working, but the last piece isn't. And it's, everybody fixates on, am I on page one on Google? Are my contact forms working? But they're not necessarily focused on the intake piece of it, right, Jay? We see this a lot.
That's
Where
right.
it's a failure right there at the end, and so that's why it's so important for everyone that's on this call, for everyone that will listen to this webinar in the future, to know a person like Jay, or really only Jay, to talk to about making sure that you have the right person answering the phone, all the right people along the way, but ultimately making sure that all that traffic that you're generating, all those leads that you're generating is actually has the best opportunity to convert into a patient, client, or case. All right, so there's the big intro for Jay Henderson. So let's get to it. We got about an hour. We'll save all our questions till the end. If you do have questions, go ahead and put them in. But we've allocated some time at the end for Jay to go through and ask questions. And then, of course, ultimately, we're here just to provide information. There's no selling going on. We're not going to try and sell you anything. There's going to be no special package deal or whatever that I know about, unless, Jay, you have something. But ultimately, you want to make your way over to realtalenthiring.com and talk to Jay about your own employee situation and hiring and firing and all that, because he can help you with all of it. Right, Jay?
That is correct, sir. Thank you.
All right, well, let's get started. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so what are you going to learn? That's the first thing. Talk to me about what we're going to learn in this webinar, Jay.
Yeah, so I put these slides together, and it's, just about how to know more about the candidate than you ever imagined possible. And now, after Tom's great, kind intro, I don't want to make it sound hypey or glib. You talked about voodoo, very appropriate word. I measure, I measure actually, objectively, mathematically, scientifically. Like so, 99%. Maybe 95, 92%, I don't know the real number, but huge number of the tools out there that measure people are subjective, and they measure behavior, which is fine and good and valuable, but you want as a reliable and specific and mathematical a measure as possible. There's really only one objective approach to measuring people and performance that I know of out there, and that's the tool I use. But it turns out that it seems voodoo-ish. Frankly, it really does. Well, I learned about it 23 or so years ago, and I was blown away by it. So it's kind of scary. People call it spooky, shocking, and all that. It's not perfect, right? Nothing is perfect. We know that there's no tooth fairy, but you want to get as close to success and give yourself the greatest possible chance to succeed that you can, right? So you want to know as much as you can. So that's what the first piece is. And then next would be that the next thing you're going to learn is why past decisions didn't work out. I mean, hiring's tough. And then after that, we're going to learn also about basically how there's a formula for hiring great people, and that you can use it again to create a leverage business and drive a tremendous amount of success for yourself. And then, after that, basically you're looking at, I like to think of it as the big problem, because that's what we need to solve is our big problems, right? And most of us don't know who we should or should not hire. It's difficult. You go through all the steps you think you should take, and we still don't know. And then we don't have a reliable system, which I like this acronym for system, saves yourself time, energy, and money. That's what system stands for, right? And we don't have typically a very clear, replicatable system. And so then we don't know how to get the best performance from our team. We don't know how to mitigate our risk in order to get the very best for ourselves to set us up for success the best that we can. You've got terrific skills as an attorney and many other skills that you've developed and gained, hopefully some hiring skills too, probably that you have, but most people rely too much on intuition. And I think you should use your intuition, just not only our intuition, right? And then the other piece here is that we have to understand so much more about the thinking and decision-making ability that people have, not just behavior. So we're kind of conditioned in our society today to look at, television, Hollywood, good looks, and there's research that actually shows that most people are looking for the look of somebody that might fit our role that we want. I mean, I want people to look the part also and to give a good representation of my business as well, and you should too.
Well, it's interesting. Let me just interrupt you here, because
Sure.
I've gone through this so many times with you that you're right. I mean, the hiring process is difficult enough as it is to try to get the right person in, but that's like the best environment to, when they're interviewing, they're polished, they're basically have probably been talking to other people before. You're kind of in a desperate situation. We as owners or people that are in the hiring process are desperately wanting someone to fill this position. Most of us have probably waited too long as it is, and now we're like desperate. I got to have help right now. I got to have help right now. So, almost that first person that walks through the door that fits our inner thinking is going to get hired, right, Jay? Isn't that what usually happens?
Yeah. Yes. I call it the, go ahead.
Go ahead. What do you call it?
Well, I call it the fog the mirror technique, which means if somebody walks in the door, you put a mirror underneath their nose and You know, if it fogs the mirror, if they're breathing, they're hired.
Right. Yeah. And I just went through a very difficult process over this, as you remember a few weeks ago, where I was wanting to hire somebody that I thought for sure was going to be able to do the job. But then, because on the face, this looked like the perfect person for this particular job, and you went through this whole thing with me, Jay, and it was tough. And you were like, you can do it because you might be able to make it work, but then all of these other red flags kept on coming up that were making me like, and then as you pointed out these red flags through the J test, which is very intuitive and amazing, that it actually, during my negotiation with this individual, these flags presented themselves, or these characteristics presented themselves, and actually showed me how this was going to manifest itself. So it saved me from doing something that would possibly have been a terrible thing, as this person was a friend of mine, you know, for many, many years. And that was something that I would have done 100%, but because of
you wanted to do it, right?
Right.
And that's
yes.
the thing that was.
And I almost did it despite what you
yeah.
said. But I'm, you know, happy that I didn't, because even when I was like, I'm not so sure this is going to work out, like I said, those other characteristics manifested themselves, and would have manifested themselves in different ways, like what you have here, you know, drama, dealing with the drama of people. So yeah, I can been through that, and appreciate having that the ability to talk to you, to go over it, like kind of explain my side of it. So it's not, you know, like here, take a test and go either way. It's really your interpretation and your consulting of the results of the test, and you know, understanding more about what they're going to be doing here, and in any environment. So Jay,
Right,
real quick though, before we move on, tell me about how many like law firms, how many doctors' offices have you worked with in the past? I know that you work with REM's team and you speak a lot at the top practices conferences. I know that you speak at great legal marketing conferences for all these past years, and I'm sure you've had you've worked with lots of lawyers and doctors. So tell me a little bit of what that experience has been like. How have you helped them?
Well, yeah, hundreds of law firms and hundreds of doctors' practices and dental practices over the years, and it's been great. Look, when you're measuring people, you have the ability, when you're doing it mathematically like we do, to do empirical studies, but you need like a lot of people in order to do that. So let's say the report you get on someone is perfectly accurate, hypothetically. Just hypothetically say it's perfect, right? And it really nails the person. Well, then there's the issue of translating that data into your world. So the report doesn't know who the person reports to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who their leadership is, the systems inside that organization, the different products and what have you, or services and what have you. So there's so many complex levels to it. But you can still know more about the person than you could any other way in order to make your best decision. But that's why the reason that I get on the phone with my clients and do that interpretation is because I want them to get the very, make the best decision, right? And get the correct data and understand it, because it's truly, even though it's amazingly accurate, you're not going to get everything you need just off the report. So I've been doing this for years and all that, and I've done it with thousands of times per year. And so when I look at them, I see way more than everybody else does. And plus I'm looking at the raw scores that generate it. But, it's been really positive so far. I mean, I think a lot of my clients come back over and over and over for years, which is a very positive statement to me. And that they are appreciating what they're getting from it. And that it's working. Sometimes, of course, it doesn't always turn out. As we're going to see as we go through these slides, it's not only about the J-test, right? There's so many other parts, as you well know, in the hiring process to simplify and make your world better. And I'm going to go through the mistakes you don't want to make, and I want to go through the steps that you do want to take in these slides real quick to make sure that all, because I've had people, I do have a system that teaches bosses every step they should take in the hiring process and all the steps not to take. And based on my experience through the years of helping thousands of bosses in the hiring process, I've learned quite a lot about it beyond just the metrics that I do. So, but it's been very positive and good. I've get a lot of great testimonials and feedback, and I really haven't. I've had amazing amounts of people call me and say, you know, it nailed exactly that we had to let them go, and the reason we had to let them go is literally in black and white on the report. You know, it's the red flags that are raised are the reasons they were fired. It's happened so many times, it's amazing, which gives me confidence to continue on trying to help here, right?
Yeah, and you're
how do you measure people?
Right,
you know?
and here's the thing, is like, you're not sure, sometimes people have to get fired, but you know, because it's like, well, that's why it hasn't worked. But we're also trying to make sure that you don't hire them in the first place. It's not necessarily that the person is a bad person that can never work anywhere. It's just not the right fit for you. Would you agree with that, Jay?
Totally. Let me give you a case in point. When I talked about empirical benchmarks just a minute ago, we measured every doctor in every hospital that is owned by HCA, Hospital Corporations of America. Huge corporation, 40-some-odd billion dollars a year in revenue. And we did a big empirical benchmark for them on their doctors. And we found 9 toxic patterns that don't work in the HCA culture. Now, you know, when we pull those patterns, so to speak, those profiles aside and look at them, these are highly talented, sharp people with great thinking ability and great talent, right? Who will do great in many other hospitals. But HCA is just saying, these are the people that we don't want here.
Right.
Does that make sense? Can you see the connection with what you were talking about?
Yeah, totally. Yes. I mean, like, and that's good for the potential employee too. Okay, well, that's not for me.
Right.
And it, you know, it saves a lot of time and pain and you know, like a lot of things that you've got listed here. You know, you don't want to deal with people that if they don't want to be here, you don't want them here, and you shouldn't have people that don't want to be here and deal with people that you don't want around. Simple as that.
Right. That's right.
All right.
So
this is the big.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, good. I just, those points before that on the page before there, you know, it's just, you know, when these things are happening, you know, you're kind of in the challenge, you're in the problem, right? That the hiring has been a difficult piece. So then going to the next slide, and I'm sure everybody's read that.
So if everybody is dealing with this, right? I know, as we've been chatting, but if any of these things hit you and you're like, yeah, that's me, then you should probably have a conversation with Jay. That's really the point.
Oh, thank you. Exactly. Well, right here, then, you know, Harvard Business Review says that the problem is in the decision, right? You know, that it's the turnover is the result of the wrong decision, you know, as opposed to what could be perceived as, what's the number one reason good people leave good companies? It's their direct boss. They feel disrespected and they feel underappreciated. Respect is the number one need of employees and team members, and it's the number one development area of most bosses. So, you know, that's
right.
So that's one challenge. That's one challenge to it. That's right. But Harvard is saying there's more to it than that. It's actually, in the first place, we got the wrong person in the wrong spot, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Next slide. Let's see what that looks like.
Of course, we all remember fondly when grass was green.
So this is Jordan Spieth, right? This guy in 2015, he won 5 golf tournaments. He won a thing called the FedEx Cup, which if you win the FedEx Cup, you get $10 million. So he won $22 million in 2015. And the point here, if you'll hit the button for the next, there's a little verbiage. See, in golf, the speed and direction of the golf club is the key to success. Okay, and let's go to the next slide. The analogy is that in business, right, it's the speed and direction of your decisions. So in golf, if tennis, it's the tennis racket. In golf, it's the golf club, right? But in business, it's great decision making. So really, that's what you're trying to hire is people that have the judgment, the clarity of thinking. See, I measure how people think and make decisions. I don't measure behavior. I can predict behavior very often in an amazing way because I know what the thinking is. So I know what they're going to do. But, your key is to get people that'll make good decisions. Like Hilton Corporation, they said to us after doing huge benchmarks with them and rolling it out for 9 years under contract, we're in Japan and Orlando and Vegas and Hawaii and all these different spots where they are hiring people regularly. Their feedback to us was, we're hiring people we never would have hired before. So when you think about our earlier conversation, who you're looking at, right, and you think because of the way they look or how articulate they are or how enthusiastic they are that they fit the part, right? They seem sharp. It's like TV, And so, but what we're really after is what's going on inside the person. It's the decision capacity for the speed, fast, accurate decisions, good judgment, right? And so in golf, it's the club. In business, it's the decisions. And that's really what you're looking for. And Hilton said, we're hiring people we never would have hired before because they didn't look the part. And we are turning away people we would have hired before. And they find that people are performing 80% faster, they said. So once they get in the role, they excel faster than the other people ever did, even the successful ones. And their training time they're in training 50% of the time they used to be in training. So they're just people that get it and they fit and they work for that culture. Now that's again based on empirical benchmarking and that's harder to do. But nonetheless, let's not lose the point. It's about their capacity to make good decisions for you.
Yeah.
What's the next slide?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The 7 mistakes.
Yeah, the mistakes. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to, let me back up to it. It's just really getting in ahead. It's much easier to fix something actually before you do it, than it is undoing something you've already done. And that's the whole point here is, it's giving you more data to make the better decision. That's kind of the other thing that you give us data to allow us to make the decision, and that's one of the, you're right, what you said a little bit ago about the test provides data that you can then interpret to help us as employers make decisions about a particular person. And, never have you been like, this person is just, there's no way. I mean, there's no way because you don't know until you start asking us some questions about what that person will be doing, about who they'll be, other people they'll be interacting with. And what that allows us to do is make the right decision based on, the results of the test and your consultation of those results. And that's really it.
Yeah, it
because
is.
Even sometimes they've been not bad tests. It's not like you pass or fail. And that's why no matter what, everybody has got to at least go through one of these to see if it's right for you with Jay. Because it's great. I mean, it's not just giving you the test results because they can be interpreted differently. Like, for instance, when we send somebody through your system, we get the results of the test before we talk to you about it. And Buster usually gets it. He's the CO around here, and he's the one that initiates everything, and then he'll pass it on to me. And then he'll have his own view of it. I'll have my own view of it, and then we'll talk to you, and you'll completely change our view of it, like what we thought a lot of times. Sometimes I'll be like, this person will never work out. And you'll be like, well, hold on a minute. If they're going to do this, this, and this, then they might,
Right,
and
you
so
compare it to the role.
Right. And so that's kind of the cool thing about it is, it just gives you more facts on how to make a better decision. There's no crystal ball. Right.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, it's helping you make a better decision on someone who's going to make good decisions. That's what
Right.
we're all. That's what we're trying to do here, right?
Right.
Is that that's what we want. So here's
We're
the
just trying
mistakes.
to
Let me
hedge
hit
our
these.
bets as much as
That's
possible.
right. That's
Right.
exactly right. All right, hit that 3 more times because then I think there'll be 4 on this slide. So you got hiring too quickly, hiring on
Now,
gut
see, how did you
feelings.
know that? There's just one example of your intuitiveness that you would
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. It's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
uh, but like we fall for these things. You started out talking about the first one, hiring too quickly, getting desperate, and everything. We don't know what to hire based on, so we only use our gut because we. But you said the other thing you said correctly a second ago is that it's about data. And the way I tell my clients is your job is to gather as much information or data as you possibly can and remove all emotion, as much as you can. Like you trying to hire your buddy, right? And then and to clarify something you said a second ago, just to another point on it, is there are times where I will say to someone, do not, under any circumstances, by my advice, hire this person. Now that's rare. I've never had to say it to you guys because you're taking the proper steps in the first place to get good people in the door. But there are times where I'll, like if I get a report that has tremendous amount of red flags in it, then what I'll do is um, I'll say, let me go look at the reliability and make sure it's a reliable, reliably valid, so that we're given the person. I mean, I like people, and so I want them to have the best possible chance to succeed in their life, and I don't want to be the guy that kept people from working, right? But and there are times where I have people redo it, and I'm
Right,
not
right. I was
afraid of
about to
that.
say that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
sometimes.
a lot of people when they're measuring, they don't want to have you redo the exam because they're worried about it not coming out the same, because then they feel like their test isn't accurate. I don't have that worry. We don't worry about that. We're trying to give people the greatest possible chance to succeed. It doesn't mean it's not accurate, because if a person does it and it's a poor result, that would keep them from getting the job. And I see reasons why they should maybe retake it. I never forget the first take, you
Mm-hmm.
see, and the logic allows it to work because it's mathematical and objective, and so it's rarely is it a great deal different, by the way, on the second take. There's just, you know, different things happen. But so I wanted to clarify that. But here on the mistakes we make, we get into these mistakes. We fall for a recommendation from a good friend. 90% of people get jobs through networking, and oftentimes that becomes a recommendation from a good friend. And then you want to hire a good friend. So, like we talked about, and then references from previous employers. It's really rare that you get. I had a client call me just yesterday and say, "Yeah, I was doing a reference check on so and so, and I was talking to the guy, and the guy said I really can't say anything about them." And he said, "No, wait a minute, you don't work there anymore. You're with a different company now." And the guy goes, "Oh yeah, that's right." So like I can be honest with you in this reference check about that person. You know? Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all right. There's 3 more. Let's hit the next slide here, and then 2 more. Yeah. So if they ace the interview, look, I like to say anybody can be great for an hour. You got to really be careful. And some people, they spend 2 or 3 hours with someone. Don't do that, because do that over days, maybe or a week or two if you've got time. But don't do it in one setting where you're 2 to 3 hours with someone, because you start, the more you talk to a person, the more you learn that they're a lot like you, right? Or they've had experience, and you build an affiliate relationship there. You build a connection,
Right.
you know?
Yes.
And if you've got a lot of empathy and you only see the best in people, man, you're going to get in trouble. So people acing the interview. Look, I mean, if they're good in an interview, good, great. But I happen to know from literally objectively measuring it that some people are just fantastic at interviewing, and one's sitting next to you, Tom, and because they can read you really well, and they're very practical, quick on their feet. They know what you want. They never forget their result, and so they deliver what you want. It's like a performance. And you know what?
Yeah.
They're great salespeople, and so they're natural at it. And then 6 is we want to test. Okay, you'll see. I'll talk about that later. You want to test, but you don't, like, for instance, don't hire someone just because they're smart, like they did well on an IQ test. It doesn't mean they're going to perform. We've all heard about people that are smart that can't actually change a flat tire. So you got to be careful of that. Then the impressive resume. I mean, I'm not trying to make people out to be bad, but the Society for Human Resource Management said 51% of resumes contain false or misleading information. And there's three areas they lie about. I can see if I can remember them. One is their education, one is their past salary, and one is how long they've worked at other jobs. So people tend to fudge the resume a bit to pretty it up and doctor it up. And by the way, you can buy a resume these days. $2,000, $3,000 will get you a really nice one. And listen to this. Back on reference checks, I learned this about 3 or 4 years ago. It was in the newspaper. I wrote an article about it, actually. There's a company, I don't know if they're still in business, that actually does fake reference checks for candidates looking for jobs. So you can call this company, and for, I think, $150, you can get an 800 number, a voicemail recording, which means they'll give me an 800 number to put on my resume, that you call my reference, and there's a voicemail recording that says, hey, this is XYZ company. I'm John Davidson, who is the reference on my resume, by the way, right? And please leave your name and number. We'll give you a call back. and then they will call back because the phone number is connected to me, my account with them that I paid for, and give a good reference live on the phone. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It makes sense to me. That's like reputation management and the rest of it. I mean, that's just...
yeah. But it's like totally false, and the guy was interviewed, and he said, that's not my problem. That's the problem of the person hiring the candidate. I'm just trying to service the candidate. Unbelievable. So it's pretty crazy out there.
Ethics. Well, what's interesting too is that, and I think this is a good time to ask the question, because I've probably, I don't even know how many I've done with you over the years, but there's a timing to it. That's the other part too. Like you said something, I think on the last slide about don't do a 2-hour interview. And I think that the mistake that I've made in the past is I've done, a few interviews, and sometimes, they're interviewed through other staff members before they even get to me. And then we're like, yeah, this looks like a good deal. And then we send them to you. We said, let's have them have the J test now that we've wasted or that we've invested 6 hours of our time. And we really, really want them so badly. And so then we have Jay look at them, and Jay says, red flag here, 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 and here. And we kind of went through that with my buddy. And, when is a good time to bring you in?
I'm really glad you brought this back up, because I should clarify. I mean, if you're hiring an associate attorney or an associate doctor, and it's a big decision, and you got a big contract on the table, certainly there's the appropriate time to spend a lot of time with them, right? You fly them in, you're going to have dinner, they might even stay in your home. I've seen that happen a lot. So there's definitely the right time to invest a lot of time in a candidate, so that you really can get to know them the best that you possibly can. So I should correct myself on that, just to be clear. But in the beginning of the process, you want to spend as little time as possible gathering as much data as you can. So the way I look at it is, when you sort through a resume, you decide to interview someone, you have a quick 10-minute phone interview, okay? And there's certain things you're looking for there, like tone of voice, attitude, reasons why they're leaving their current situation or are looking for a position, why they're interviewing with you or want to, and then salary, and then kind of how far away they live, and little things like that if that matters, if it's relevant. You want to learn those kinds of things. And if you like what you hear, then you bring them in for a quick 30 to 40-minute interview on the front end with maybe a team of people. If you're the CEO, you want to have someone else involved in that process. But I also, even though you want to delegate hiring, you don't want to fully delegate hiring. So I tell doctors that are very busy, that have their office managers or administrators or COOs and so forth interviewing people, that if it depends on the level of the role, but if I'm not getting too deep in the weeds here, but it's, I think the CEO or the doctor or in a small practice that's maybe 5, 10 people, should pop in on those quick interviews and just, look at the person and say hello and greet them and look them in the eye and have a little experience right there, because that the doctor or the owner of that small practice, because the smaller your business is, the more impactful or impacting that hire is on your world, if that makes sense. The bigger your company is, the less chance most people have to kind of screw things up for you, even though it can still be bad. I kind of feel like I'm all over the place here, but
No, but I get
the
it.
right
And
timing. Yeah.
it's the right, depending upon the job itself and
Yeah.
when you bring them in, right? I mean, like, that's
It
true.
is.
I mean, we've had like junior SEO people that go through, interview lots of other people, and then I'm really just at the tail end of it. Like, they all like him, he doesn't have 3 eyes or whatever, and he seems great. And generally, they do the J test or get that going, and then they come to me and said, okay, in this particular case, we all like him. J test looks good, and then I'm good to go. I'm like, as long as all that stuff is good, I'm fine. But like what you said, like, if somebody that's working directly with me, like this person was going to be, and like, if you're a doctor and you need to get another doctor, that is a different kind of relationship. I mean, you guys are going to be working very closely together, very dependent upon one another. Same thing with another lawyer in the firm.
Right.
I mean, you get a bad lawyer in the firm, you can get big trouble for yourself. I can't recommend this big, high enough for lawyers, because I've been doing this, as you have, for years and years, working with lawyers, that you, as the managing partner or the owner of the firm, are the one that's going to pay the price by bringing in the wrong attorney in your firm, no matter what. I mean, that is huge liability. So, and
It
well,
really
same
is.
thing with the doctor too, with the malpractice and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean,
well, to the timing, it's to be more specific, it's kind of like as quickly as you can, where the expenditure for my service makes sense.
yeah,
Where you see there's a cost-benefit ratio that you have to decide what that looks like for you. Some of my clients do it really on the front end as fast as they can, but they feel like they don't want to, and you got to be careful. There's laws about that. You've got to do at least one interview before you run a tool like this service that I give you on candidates. But that can be a quick 10-minute phone interview. You can't do it without an interview. And then the other part, legally, the EEOC requires that you only use a tool like my service for up to 30% of the decision and no more. So they can never say to someone, well, believe it or not, people have said this, you flunked the test, so you can't get hired. I mean, which you should never say, and it's not true anyway. But
right.
If that makes sense. So it's a cost benefit. So it's each business owner's decision on the timing. But I'll say this also, lastly, that think of this as another interview, because that's what it is. Yep. This isn't just a personality or behavioral read on the person so we can get along, kumbaya, and communicate. This is an objective risk analysis that also includes communicate and performance and get along. But think of it as the one interview in all your interviews that is the objective interview that truly reveals what's going on inside. So it's up to you to determine the timing.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, the earlier the better, I think, is the bottom line of that. I mean, I agree that, you've got to have, obviously, the initial interview to see if you want to even pursue. And then it should be right after that, okay, let's see how this person does on the J test, or get the results from J, and then follow up more interviews after that.
Yeah, it's kind of about what's your time worth. That's what it kind of comes down to.
Right. All right. And so this is, we've kind of been talking about this, but...
Yeah. Enthusiasm is the answer.
Hey, you just once again, you just know this
Again,
stuff. It's amazing.
I can see the future.
Right. But yeah, and this is what we're talking about. We get so excited. Oh my gosh, I've been wanting to fill this position so long, and this pretty individual, good-looking individual that says all the right things, that has got me figured out, has read my website from front to back and watched my videos and done everything and knows every single thing about me, that comes in there and says, you know what, I love Star Trek. And they say all the things to me, like, oh my God, all the things that they say, and I'm like, wow, this person's great, and they've just been
That's great.
right profile me.
That's
um,
yeah. So let me just tell you a quick story, a really quick story. So and it just popped into my head. It's an attorney in Illinois. I'm pretty sure they're in Illinois. Is a client of mine, and they called me one time. They were hiring an associate attorney, and they had two associate attorneys go through this experience with me, and we whittled it down to this one particular person that they made an offer to. And the offer was in line with what the associate attorney kind of wanted and what they discussed in interviewing and process. And so I got an email a couple days later, and they said, Jay, we made the offer, and it was totally in line with what they said they would go for originally in our interviewing process. And she came back with this highball number, and we feel like she's conning us and being dishonest with us and not telling us the truth and all this stuff. So I go and look at this person's profile, and I wrote back an email, and I said, look, this person would never do what you're describing, and it is not her choice. I said, I'll bet her husband talked her into rolling up the money on you guys. And I guarantee you she did that following her husband's advice, but that she was uncomfortable with the whole thing. I said, if I were you, I would call her, get on the phone, and have a discussion about it and find out what's really going on. So they followed my advice, and they wrote me this big, long letter. They were really, this is the fun stuff of what I do. They were like, my husband and I were on the phone with this associate attorney. These two, by the way, are both attorneys, this husband and wife team. And they said, we were on the phone trying to figure out why she came back with a different number. And she said, my husband does hiring for this big company, and he talked me into doing a bigger number, and I was totally uncomfortable with it, but I decided to follow my husband's advice, and oh my gosh, I'll do it for the number that you offered me in the first place. I'd really like to work there, and I was so uncomfortable. And they wrote us and kind of were blown away that I had told them exactly what had happened there. And that's really the value too, because different things happen, and we never know. It's like doing team building. If you understand why Doug or Molly or Connie or Buster, if you understand how they think, you know why they do what they do and say what they say, which takes all the assumptions and underlying distrust out of the relationship, because you know why, right? They didn't mean to do that. That's just them. That's just how they think. That's just what they need in order to perform, you see. So that was fun. It just reminded me of it, even though it's a little different than the enthusiasm point we're making here, but it's understanding people at that deep level. And even though they look like the greatest thing in the world, we got to look deeper.
Well, that's a great point that you bring up, because that's true with the consultation, is we've actually gone back to you and asked, like, for clarification, or like, this person did this, is this, and then you would go back to the test and say, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense because of X, Y, Z. Another great thing about what you just brought up is that whole compatibility piece of it. Like, so that's another thing that you do as part of your services, is that you'll take two people that might be working together. They don't even need to be at the same business, because we did this with I think this was one of the first ones we did, Jay, was with me, Ben Glass, and Rem Jackson, and of course.
That's right. I forgot about that.
That was so funny, and I won't say anything more of what we already know. But one thing that I actually consulted with it later on, or Rem brought it up to me, and he was like, you know what? He was because I was about to talk to Ben about something, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose him. And actually, Rem pulled out the J test, and he was like, well, here's how you got to talk to him. He's like, you tend to ramble on and go on and you know, make your point 18 different ways, and Ben has got, you know, Ben doesn't want to hear any of that, and he wants you to make your point and be done and drop the mic. And if you don't do that, then you've lost Ben. And it informed the way that I was going to talk to him, and I did it. I'd be like, it was really awkward for me because it was hard for me to communicate. I'm rambling right now, but I was very clear. Like I wrote down here, okay, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it and shut up. And it was
exactly.
And it worked. Ben and I had a great conversation.
Listen,
and
I've had. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just. I hope he's not on the call so he hears this to know that I actually did, like, coached myself on how to talk to him that day. But I'm sure he'll.
Well, that's only wise. That's only wise. You know.
Right. Yeah.
You know. This is gonna this all we're talking a lot about me and what I do, and I'm sure you know the content in the slides is a lot about you, dear client, dear business owner, and what you need. But so I appreciate though the opportunity, Tom, to talk about me a lot. Thank you. It doesn't happen much in my life. But anyway, I wanted to tell you that I've had many. I don't do this on purpose, and I don't market this, but I've had many people come to me about their marriages, and I can run a compatibility report, which you did with Rem and Ben. That remember that document at the very bottom of that 2-page document, it tells you, based on your profile, exactly how to talk to Ben based on his. And it points out in black and white, and I mean it's freaky. Like I can take 20 marriages, line you guys up, run this compatibility tool on you, and you'll look at that bottom paragraph and go, holy cow, that is the exact thing that drives me nuts about this person that I'm married to, right? It's like and,
it's like watching the tapes. You know, it's like watching the tapes for a team you're about to play, so you know what offense and defense to run. So it helps you with the communication, and that's another kind of, you know, once you hire the person or whatever. I mean, there's lots of other like things that you provide besides just hiring people. Okay, we don't have to talk about you anymore. Enough about you.
Okay.
Good Lord.
Yeah, really.
Let's get back to the topic.
Let's help these good people that are taking their important time.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, two more buttons. Hit the button 2 more times. Look, you've maybe seen this with me before, but first of all, you all know that you want to know, can they do the job? That's the number one thing you're looking for. But how do we know whether they will do the job or not? But that's a key thing. You know, it's like people can interview, people have goals. When people have emotional goals, powerful goals that truly motivate them, it accesses all their best stuff and it brings out the genius within them, okay? And so sometimes people are more hungry to get the job than they are to do the job. Right? So we, you know, so they interview great and all that. Now, I'm not trying to make out people to be bad and everything. Most people are great and they want to do their best and everything like that. In fact, our research proves that most people actually do truly want to perform at their best. It's just that in the coaching world, there's a saying that says people are doing their very best, even if they're not, which kind of means they're clueless that they don't know that they could do better, and that's the truth about people.
Or maybe they're incapable of it.
That's right. And you want to know these 3 things. You know, can they, will they, and will they for you? That's what you're looking for. So, like, people never ask the question, you know, will they? Because they don't know how to know whether they will or not. And that's what I'm here to help with. So, next slide. All right, let's rip through these quick because we're short on time. But I want to give you the 7 steps that I believe are the things you need to do foundationally to try to get the best people in the door at your practice, your business, whatever, your firm. But number 1 here is to create what I call the superstar profile. And what that means really is because I keep using the word profile, and we're talking about the J test and everything. This is different. I'm really talking here about determining. And if you want to reach out to me, I will send you a document that shows you how to find out what the superstar profile is for a certain role. Um,
Is this the job description?
it's
Is that what
deeper
that
than
is?
that. Thanks for the question. Yeah, it's deeper than that. It's like trying to find. It's looking under every rock you can think of in the role and trying to determine exactly, specifically, like maniacal specificity about who you're looking for. And to
Right.
think of everything. It's
Yeah.
beyond duties and responsibility. Go ahead.
Well, that's true. I went through this too. I mean, like I just after I went through this whole thing with that person that I didn't end up hiring, I was like, oh my gosh, you know. And this is what you told me to do. You're like, you have to. You don't know what you want yet. You know, you have to be very clear. You just kind of were like, that's the guy that I think is going to meet all my needs, but you don't really know what your needs are yet. And so it forced me to sit down and really write, here's the avatar of the person. And we say this to our own people, you
Yeah.
know, you need to come up with the avatar for your perfect client. It's no
It is
different than
marketing.
right. Yes. Yes. And what's more important than getting the person that's going to be working side by side with you every day to help you
Yeah.
grow your business? That's way more important than getting the perfect client in that you're going to make money from or whatever, right?
And if you don't know what exactly that is, then how are you going to find them?
Right, right. How are you going to do this?
That's exactly the point. Is then you base your ad for the person you're looking for on the profile you designed because
And,
that's
right.
who you're looking for.
And then you can start asking people like this person. You can
Yes.
make sure that your ad is in the right place where this person is looking because now you
And
know because you created the profile.
yeah, that's right. And so that step one is huge. It seems like a really small thing, but it helps you weed out the weak ones too. Because people are gonna look. I had one client that is an attorney also in Illinois, by the way, a different one, who actually spent 4 hours on step one. He wanted a certain specific attorney in his office. He told me this. He spent 4 hours determining that avatar. Okay. And he said, I got 2 responses to my ad. I wrote
Right.
the ad, step 2. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen every time at all. Okay. I'm not making a promise here. But this was his experience. It's the only story I've ever heard, by the way, about somebody other than the one you just told. But, and he said, I got 2 responses. He said they were both just phenomenal. And I hired one of them, and it's been great. So I'm not saying it's the Holy Grail. It's just critical first step to determine that, right? If you don't have clarity about the goal, how will you know when you're close or around it or have it sitting in front of you? And you can use step 1, the profile and avatar you build, so that you can write the ad, so that you can weed out the weak ones. And there's other steps to weeding out weak ones. Let me just cover a thing or two for you really quick. Like you want to have a couple of piles of resumes. You bring in the resumes, you put them into pile A and pile B. Pile A, you have cover letters. Pile B, they have no cover letters. That doesn't mean you never look at pile B, but let's look at the people that are doing it right, where they're using a cover letter. Don't tell people, by the way, in your ad, send me a resume with the cover letter. Now, if you want to say, send me a resume with a letter that describes why you should work here, that's fine. But don't, tip people off to the way they should respond when they're trying to get a job. Let's check out their professionalism and their understanding by making them come up with that on their own. Then you look at cover letters that are written, customized to you, like they looked at your website or they know who they're actually talking to, rather than just blasting everybody their cover letter and resume. So there's just tricks to weeding out, people. And of course, there's typical stuff. Look at the background. And then the next one, step 4, right, is the interview. And there's all these different kinds of ways to interview people. But here's what I was going to say. Step 1 becomes important in step 4 because you have a profile of exactly what you're looking for. Let's say you and Buster and Connie and Molly are all interviewing one candidate together. You each have a copy of the profile you built to try to find the right person, of who the right person is. You all have a copy of that in front of you, and now you can all independently grade that person against that profile. as you go through the interviewing process. See, it gives so much more specificity and clarity when you have the criteria of exactly what you believe will work in their role. Even then, when I do a debrief with you on their, quote, J-test, you can tell me, here's the criteria. We're very clear we want the person to be X, Y, and Z. And then I can compare that to what I see in their numbers or their scores, right, in how they think. So it increases the fit. Go ahead.
You know who does a great job with this is Ben Glass, in that what he does is he will create like almost a scavenger hunt type of, that's for the lack of a better word, description, but make them do things, especially if it's a job like a process-oriented job, because he wants somebody that thinks process. And if they don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they try to get an interview, they're canceled out, which is the step 3 of weed out the weak ones, because they're not going to do what they're told.
Right.
I mean, that proves to him right there that this person doesn't pay attention to direction.
Yeah. Now, let me give a caveat to that. It's very important that what you're talking about, because, see, remember, we're gathering data and removing emotions, right? So we want as much data. So you're going to test people as much as you possibly can on the front end. Now, the caveat comes in if you're, in a very small town and you're 40 miles from a big town and you're trying to attract talent and you don't happen to get people that answer the resume or the ad perfectly the way you want to, then you've got to be flexible, right? If you're in Chicago or where you are, Tom, and you get 150 resumes, you can be choosy, but if you're in a small town, then that step you got to be flexible and take the best of what you've got. Which goes back to, there are times when I'll tell people in the hiring process when I'm looking at scores of a profile where I'll say, if this is the best you've got, I'd go with Johnny, right?
Right.
But you should keep looking if you can. So it's getting the best of what. Okay, we're short on time, I think, but
that's okay.
I'll let you decide that.
All right. What are we? Step 5 is the test. Is this your test or?
Well, no. This part is like background, IQ, grammar test, typing test, and behavioral tests. When I was talking about those, I'm not trying to be negative about them. I like them. You should have behavioral profiles. If they're statistically validated, then use them. Because the more data, the better. So just you got to decide the cost-benefit ratio and all that. And then the step 6 is the tool that I like because it measures risk and it really nails people objectively, scientifically, and it's truly how they think and make decisions. So there's that. And then step 7 is once you get people, well, here's the little key on, these are the 4 steps to use my system. You use the 5 steps I talked about. You pick the person you think you would hire, number 2. Number 3, they complete the performance assessment. It takes them 15 minutes. And number 4, you'll know exactly what you need to know about them. Okay? And then the next.
Guessing. I like that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's expensive. So if you'll blast through a couple of these, we don't have time to go through it. But, people tell me, my own clients tell me they think it's, $10, $20, $30, $50,000 to make a hiring mistake. And of course, it depends on the role. But I've seen receptionists blow off high-level clients and blow them. So it can be very, very expensive. And that's like 20% of what that number before totaled. And once you get to the next piece, which is, I think the next slide should be about step 7. Look, I think of the 3 Ps. You protect your business, that's step 1 in the hiring process. Protection, then access potential, that takes management and coaching skills, and then you have drive a performance-based culture. Those are the 3 Ps. Protect, access potential, because you owe it to them when you hire them to give them the greatest possible chance to succeed that you can. That's getting them started right. Onboarding, policies, training, appropriateness, and all that stuff. And those are the 7 steps.
Very good.
If you rip through those, I think it just restates all 7 steps.
Okay, very good. Pretty much the most important thing they do is this, call you. So Listen,
I agree.
everybody. Yeah, I mean, well, have a conversation. I mean, like, I hope that everyone that was on the call that doesn't know you gets a sense of your personality and your character. I mean, I can tell you that, like I said at the top of the call, I won't hire anybody without talking to you first, getting your input. I listen to you 99.9% of the time. That 0.1% that I don't, I always regret. And I often come back to you and ask for, Buster does in his own way, and I'll be like, what happened here? Or, can you help? I mean, like, and how many times have we been out at a show where I'll ask a question, you'll pull up your smartphone and be able to answer a question right there about something. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and just the intuitiveness about the way that you think. So it's really, okay, sure, the J test, but it's also really your consultation and your experience and everything that you bring to the table, and the kindness on how you do it. So I could not endorse you, Jay Henderson. Anybody that wants to at least have a conversation, that's really all you're doing at this point, to see if he can help you out. RealTalentHiring.com, right, Jay? That's all they need to do is go there, and get the phone number and call you and work something out. I mean,
and the testers can't really fake the test either. Coming from the perspective of having taken the test, these questions are not, how can I answer this to give the best results on my test? They're questions that you would never think would show somebody how you work with a team, and they do, and they're totally accurate too. My test results said that I'll do whatever you say, but I'm also going to do it my way too, and that's exactly me.
Ain't that the truth? But that's good, and we kind of knew what we were getting into, and that also informs me about how to talk to Molly, when I'm asking you to do something for me. And so anyway, it can help in all ways. And Jay, thank you so much for taking the time this very cold January day to just to everybody.
Well, listen, thank you. Before you go, I just want to thank you for everything you've said and for your time, and I really hope I can be helpful. Thank you for everything.
Okay, very good. Okay, everybody, like I said, if you're interested in getting some help in your hiring and just really help with your employees and partners and whatnot, and just kind of like another ace, then you want to get to know Jay Henderson and get him to help you out. He's definitely an asset to many, many organizations. And that's it. We're done with our January webinar. You'll be able to get it online. Molly will send out all the information about that. And we will see you next month, the third Tuesday of the month, for our February webinar, which will let you know what that's going to be about here pretty soon, once Molly tells me. All right, everybody. Thank you. Take care now. Bye, Jay. Thanks so much.
Thanks, you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.